hottest station is now live for your enjoyment with host iamBranded.
And we want to welcome R&B singer Terrell Carter into the building, member of Hi-5's. Mr. Carter, what's good, man?
I'm good. I'm chilling. Yeah, nice to see everybody chiming in and hear everybody.
And on top of that, man, I appreciate you taking the time out tonight to come in and holler at us and the fans, the new fans, the fans that has been a part of this movement for so long. And what's been good? What's been good, sir?
Just chilling actually. Just working and more working, parenting and school, pretty much.
Keeping bad, yo. That ain't nothing wrong with that, man. It's definitely not wrong with that. So I hope a little bit of that work is tied to just continuing to make classic hits in music, right?
Well, it started out to be that way, and then sometimes life kicks in, and then you get sidetracked, and before you realize that everybody's saying what happened to the music.
Right.
So, it gets that way sometimes, but I'm trying to still stick at it and really put something together that people will like.
Well, one of the things I want to do is I want to take time to not just of course thank you for coming on, of course, but also thank you for continuing to push the name Hi-5 and continue to keep the music legacy rolling, because I'm pretty sure you get this from fan bases and people in general, but the circulation of good music that was put out by the group has been continually still embraced by the music community, and it's going to be like this for the legacy is there. It's a beautiful thing, right?
It's actually getting ready to come back, I believe. The only thing is it's not going to have me in it. So, I mean, what ended up happening was when Hi-5 was together, I was actually brought in to do vocals for them when I was younger. So if you look at I forget the album, but it's a song called Fly Away, you'll see background vocals by Little Anthony Carr. And at that time, that was my name. So I came in to do background vocals for them and got to meet Tony and hang out with the guys, and it was great. Right before Tony split from the group, they had called me in to do background vocals on the Greatest Hits album. So I came in to do a song called That Was Then, This Is Now. And at that moment, they approached me about being the sixth member of Hi-5.
Right.
So that way I could work with Tony and help him do the vocals on the album, but I wouldn't be able to travel with them because I was younger than all the rest of the guys.
Okay.
So at that moment, since we're talking about moms and just being a parent, my mom sat down and spoke with my dad, who was managing me at the time, and said, you know what, I don't think this will be a good idea for him. He's young, and who wants to go through all of that but not be able to have the glory and the pictures and the traveling and stuff like that? So we declined the offer. Stayed in touch with him, with Tony Thompson, throughout the years, and then, rest in peace. A week before he died, he called me and said he needed to talk to me about something. I never was able to get that phone call.
Wow.
The next thing that I got was a phone call from Treston Irby stating, because I had been trying to call to figure out what was going on and make sure somebody remembered me, and he did. So I got in touch with Treston Irby. We spent a couple of years just, he came by my house to see what I was working on, because in between the time I had signed to Whitney Houston's label. I was with Vincent Herbert for a while. And, I let him hear my stuff, and he heard a song and said, that reminds me of stuff that Tony Thompson would do. Long story short, he decided to put together a new Hi-5. So I was one of the members in the new Hi-5.
Right.
Then one of the members of the new Hi-5, he was getting ready to go off to school. He decided he didn't want to do it anymore because he wanted to focus on his schooling. So then he was replaced by another member. Then once that happened, we did this really great show, but then I just realized that it just wasn't working out for me, the whole group thing, because I was so used to being solo. And at the present moment, I'm a teacher, and I'm in school for my master's to be a principal. So I was like, you know what, this is just kind of too much. They were calling saying we need to go here, we need to go there, and it was just too much, and I have a little one at home. So I was like, you know what, guys, I have to buy out. So I basically took myself out of the Hi-5. And then I was replaced by someone who's like a really good friend of mine, which is really weird. Had no idea that, how small the world is. So basically what happens is, I'm still rocking with being one of the new members of Hi-5 and keeping them alive, because Tony Thompson was really close to me when I had the chance to know him. And so therefore I can't keep the name out of people's mouths. And just being able to have that short moment of being with the group and having, those videos and performances that we did, just that brief moment, I felt that it was still good to kind of keep that, Hi-5 attached to my name, so that way I can rock with it, and then when the new Hi-5 comes out, they can rock with it also, just to kind of keep the legacy alive, because Hi-5 was one of those groups that never really fully got a chance to really grow to be, as big as they should have because of the separation, when
right.
Tony left to go solo and just, not being able to come back to the group because of, what happened, and so it just never got a chance to thrive.
And to me, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't know, not just the behind the scenes and, the members, being, resting in peace or just kind of splitting off to go solo or doing certain things. But, you kind of made that point of you being a part of a moment in time where I feel like, you put in Kissing Game, you put in Can't Wait Another Minute, you put in more than a handful of tracks that Hi-5 has done throughout, and it's something to live off on. So with the whole transition being, the changing of the guard with the groups and things like that, do you feel like that put a hamper on the legacy, or do you feel like that was just, it happens in life, and especially with groups, guy groups, girl groups, it tends to happen that way?
Well, obviously, I don't think it put a damper on the group, especially back in the past, because I think the changes happened so seamlessly that you didn't really notice it. From when Tony Thompson was alive, it happened so seamlessly that you kind of didn't really pay attention to it. But that was also because you had a record company and marketers behind it that kind of strategically, interchanged the numbers, the members. So, that kind of helped out. But, now with the changing of the members, I don't think it really deterred from what they were doing because it wasn't on the mainstream. So just those really, really close fans that, let's say, were following the website would see 1 minute this guy's up there and the next minute he's not and there's somebody else there. 1 minute you see a video with, let's say, me performing and the next minute you don't see me anymore. So only the diehard fans will kind of see the member changes that have happened recently before the new Hi-5 came out. But those members that are just kind of waiting for the project to come and hit the mainstream, they won't even realize that there were a couple of changes before. Just to get the, I guess you could call it the consistency right within the group, because that also is a big part of these groups too. It has nothing to do with. Sometimes it has nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with personalities and just how well everybody gels together. So,
especially during the time where, in the 80s and 90s and even before then, I mean, like you said, the marketing people at the record labels were real good at putting people in place to be able to do that. Now, let me ask you this question, because you was a guy that came into a transitional period for Hi-5. Why is it that it seemed like it happened so much with groups? Guy groups, girl groups. Not talking about death, because when you lose members, through death, that's one thing. But I'm just talking about people just, okay, well, I'm done with groups, I'm going solo, or whatever the case may be. Why does it seem like it happens a lot throughout decades and decades of groups in music?
Well, the major thing is, one, like I said, you have to have those personalities that, blend well together. But on top of that, you also have to make sure that you're all business-minded and you're all comfortable in what it is that you do versus what someone else does. So if you look at a group like, let's say, New Edition, who's gone through many member changes, actually went solo and are able to come back together, all having their own solo careers, to come back together and still recreate New Edition and be comfortable with the fact that they are individual artists as well as a group, and still do what they're doing. That's tremendous. I'm not saying that New Edition doesn't argue and fight over who gets top billing from time to time, but anybody does that. But at the end of the day, they all understand. We are New Edition. At the end of the day, I am Bobby Brown. I can walk off and do this. I am Johnny Gill. I can do this. I'm Velvet. We were Velvet DeVoe. We can do this. I'm Ralph Tresvant. I can do this. And they have that in their minds, but while they're New Edition, we're New Edition. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so to be in a group, you have to have that mindset of saying, I know that I'm talented, but what is it that I bring to the group, and when do I need to bow down to let somebody else bring their strength to the table? And sometimes groups don't want to do that. Sometimes people, like they say, get too big for their britches. They feel that they can do it all, and they don't want to blend. So therefore, they say that they're going to take the, piece out and replace me kind of thing, or they may kick somebody else out to have them replaced.
So do you feel like a lot of it's like ego and financial as far as for groups to splinter off into solo acts?
Sometimes, I mean, it could be financial. Sometimes it could just be egos. And then sometimes it's just circumstances. Something happens in a family, something happens in your life that you just can't complete those obligations anymore, so you just have no other choice but to leave.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, it could be any circumstances. I mean, I'm not saying that all groups have the same, but, it's any kind of dynamic, just the same thing as being at work and working in a group. Something happens in somebody's life and family, they have to go and they can't hold their end of the bargain, so they leave instead of causing the others, a problem by trying to stick around and they know they can't do it.
Completely agree, and but on the flip side, because of course, anytime you have personal issues outside of the group, that's definitely going to have some ramifications to it. But on another side of the group, you kind of look at histories of a lot of groups. A lot of the Motown groups had some issues as far as staying together. You had a lot of groups in general, not just just on Motown, but in general. But I hear this from a lot of people. It just seemed like a lot of the groups that was formed meant so much to the music industry during the time. So now here we are in 2012. And we don't, aside from, the New Edition, they're together, but then they can go solo anytime they want to. But there isn't enough groups out there that they can be able to, I guess, build something with as far as a rapport with. You know what I mean? Because girl groups are gone. When's aside from SWV coming back, there's not too many girl groups at all. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are missing that.
Yeah. I mean, but you also have to understand that, too. Back in the day when they had groups really performed. Like, all members of the group had either a part, a harmony, a this or that. It was more like the barbershop kind of thing with a hip-hop or R&B spin to it. Whereas nowadays, because the music is so fabricated, who really needs a group when you can be your own group? I mean, they're auto-tuning your vocals. They're dubbing your vocals. Who really needs a group? And the thing is, like, people are saying, why should I have to deal with 2 or 3 other personalities when I could just do it all myself with some studio equipment? And then why should we spend time trying to please the ego or rub the egos of a group when all I really need is one person anyway? Which is why most of the times you see a lot of single artists with backup dancers that look like they should have been part of a group. But yet, the artists and their backup dancers. And they will go out and perform like that and have the same dances everywhere they go. It's almost like creating a group, but all you need is that single person. So the difference nowadays is the music isn't there to actually substantiate a group. Like, it's just not there anymore. The whole industry is not there anymore to substantiate a group.
You said the harmonizers. You said the people. You say harmonize. I think about En Vogue. I think about so many other groups that had that in them to be able to do it. And and it's funny how you're here tonight, and we had similar conversations throughout last week about just groups and the fact that there's so many missing, that missing element. But I mean, as a guy, part of Hi-5, and I know you have some solo stuff that I know we're going to talk about as well. But don't you miss those times where you heard an SWV track, or you heard an En Vogue, or you heard such and such groups, and you was like, wow, that's really good.
But see, the good thing is, and like I can say, and rest in peace, Steve Jobs. The good thing I can say is that welcome to the internet. I don't miss it, because what I do is I don't even listen to the radio.
Right.
I pull up my iTunes, and I put my iPod and my iPad, plug it into my car, and I create my own playlist. Like, I don't even listen to the radio. If it wasn't for my kids telling me, yo, did you hear this new song, or my cousin, I wouldn't even know what was on the radio, because I don't even listen to it. I will pop in YouTube and pull up my old SWV song, and I will pop in. Like, I don't even really listen to the radio, because to me, people made a joke when R. Kelly did Happy People and said he did an album all of one song, and I said to myself, you're laughing at R. Kelly, but he capitalized on the fact that everything you listen on the radio is one song. He was just able to do it himself.
Yep.
So, you know what I mean? But that's what it is. You put it on the radio, and everything's like one song. And I remember driving from, where did we go? I think we went to Ohio. We drove from Columbus, Ohio, back to New Jersey, my cousin and I with my father. My cousin's 18. You know, I like to pretend I'm still 25, but I'm not. But we're sitting in the car, and we took bet. We took bet as the – now, mind you, we're listening to satellite radio. We took bet on what song was coming up next, and we counted as we listened to, like, a Chris Brown song. Then it was Chris Brown featuring Rihanna. Then a Rihanna song, and then a Drake song featuring Rihanna. Then a song featuring Drake. Then a Drake with Rihanna. And we were just like, this is ridiculous. Like, every other song was a Chris Brown Drake. And not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying, like, when you put on the radio and you listen to the radio for an hour straight and you hear the same people, whether it's 80 different songs, but it's the same people over and over again, why do you need a group? Because all the solo artists have made groups because they're all singing on everybody's stuff, so it's like one big group.
No, you're right. I mean, you know, I've been preaching the same thing that you're talking about for so long because, you know, I feel like, especially when it comes to mainstream radio, and then, you know, I'm not gonna knock anybody, but at the same time, I am gonna do it slightly. It just seemed like the heart of this particular business kind of died out. Because you remember back in the day, I'm pretty sure you felt the same way when you first heard yourself on the radio. It mattered to you, like it really mattered.
Yeah.
You know, because you know you had, you know, and I used to say the same story. Like I remember hearing the "Vision of Love" by Mariah Carey for the very first time I heard it on radio, and it was so dope at the time that, you know, a lot of people kept requesting it, and they was like, well, you know what, y'all want it so much, we gonna play it again. And they did that, and it was so easy for them to do that, and because they had passion about, you know, what the fans wanted at that time, and now it's all run by computers. Heartless, right?
And you know what it is too, that much of the music from the 90s and a little afterwards, but the 90s and the olden days, the music actually spoke to you.
Absolutely.
Versus nowadays, the music speaks for you, which is a totally different thing. When the music speaks for you, because what's happening now is people are creating music that are creating who people think they are. Mm-hmm. Whereas back in those days, when you heard a song, you internalized it. Yep. And you started thinking about things that you were going through, went through, might go through the next day, something your friend went through. You internalized it, and it spoke to you. Because people actually wrote songs from their heart and about things that they've experienced. And you could hear it, and you could feel it in their vocals. But nowadays, they aren't doing that. Like, I don't know. Nowadays,
what made it change, Terrell? What made it change, though? What happened?
I feel like the money made it change when they saw that you could make money. And I also feel like it's a whole marketing thing where, you know, they speak to what they think people want to hear. Like, nobody really wants to hear about the hurt and the pain. Right. And they want to hear about how I can get a quick fix or how I can get in your pants real quick. And everybody loves it because that's what they want to do. That's why it speaks for them versus to them. Because you don't internalize the fact where you wake up in the morning and say, I just want to get in somebody's pants. You don't wake up in the morning and say that and feel like that's your reason for living. It's to wake up every morning and find out whose pants you can get into. That's not what anybody wants. But that's what all this music is about. Can I get in your pants real quick? And then, back in the day, that didn't exist. Like, you had your let's have sex songs, but they were totally different. They were
were different. They were different from the Marvin Gayes to the Isley Brothers. They were real. They were real. I mean, it was real genuine. And not only that, it wasn't like a one-night stand joint. It was one of those type of songs where you can be able to, you know, just be able to express yourself to your lady. You can have differences when it came to that. And you're so right when it comes to it, because now it is fast food songs right now. I mean, we're feeding these kids with these songs with no meaning. And, you know, a lot of people wonder why. And then you brought up the Internet. I mean, to me, I kind of see it as a blessing and a curse, because you can go back if you feel nostalgic, but at the same time, a lot of these kids and these young people don't really understand the history, because all they got it is, okay, we got something real quick we can be able to listen to. I don't want to spend the time to do that. Some people do, some people don't.
Right, but you also have to understand, too, and this is where I guess the educator in me picks up, is that because of the Internet and the technology wave, things happen so quickly that kids don't want to take the time to sit and listen to a song and get it. In other words, because the Internet, like, I'm a language arts teacher, and I kid you not, I'm a language arts teacher and a songwriter, plus I have a marketing degree. So I understand it from all different angles. Right. And when I sit down in class and tell my kids to write a paper, They give me 1 or 2 sentences and they think they're done. And they think they're done. But the thing is, it's not that they think they're done, but it's the fact that because of instant messaging, text messaging, where you get to your point really quickly, you don't have time to write out all the extra details. Their brain is now hardwired that way to where when you say write a paper and explain your points, they basically write them out. This is this, and that's that. I'm done. How's my paper? Why didn't I get an A?
Yeah, just like the LOLs and the LMAFOs.
Right. So and the music is the same. The music is the same way. Like put it this way, you have LMFAO who has that song "I'm Sexy and I Know It."
Yeah,
and it's point blank. But now, what's the difference in that song and the song "I'm Too Sexy for Myself"? He actually had to write out that whole song, which in essence says the same thing as LMFAO, except theirs is straight and to the point. When I walk on by, girls see me, it's just straight to the point. They're not really, it's just straight to the point, but it just speaks to the generation now that they don't have time to listen to a sexual healing and really understand the fact that this is all just foreplay. He ain't even get to the sex yet. He's really just sitting there, and all she's doing is teasing him. They don't have time for that. They're not about the foreplay. They're not about the lovemaking. They're about, I came to your house, we went out to eat. Now that we're here, what do you mean? Nobody's home. What you Like, that's where their brain is. And that's where they want their music to be.
Boy, Terrell Carter, member of Hi-5, is our guest. He's a music preacher, by the way, too. He's giving us game tonight. He's definitely giving us game. And, I mean, what about you? You said, you're working on some stuff on the solo as far as your own music. Tell us a little bit about that.
I've been working on and off with myself and my cousins. But it just seems every time I get on a roll, something always happens. So, I mean, I did some independent stuff. I did it back in 2000 and I think it's 2001 while I was still in college. Did an independent CD, 6 songs. It did well. Then after that, I was doing some stuff, working with people. They make promises, and of course, the promises never came through. So I ended up with just a hard drive full of hopeful albums. So
when you wait. When you say albums, how many? 3, 4, 5?
Trust me, I have a hard drive with a couple of gigabytes of just music that I did for other people. That they were either going to sell or they were going to put it together, and it just never happened. So what happens is, like, a lot of my music, I've always told, ever since I was with Vincent Herbert, that my music was ahead of its time. And if I were to play stuff for you now that I did when I was, like, 13, you'd say people are singing that stuff now. But I did that when I was 13, and that was, let me see, if I'm 25 now, that was only 12 years ago, let's say. Don't say anything. People that listening that know me, they're not calling to say nothing about this being 12 years ago when I was 13. They're calling now.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So, like, you'll listen to it now, and you'll be like, wow, this is the kind of stuff that kids are singing now and everybody's doing now, but I did that when I was 13. So, you know, it's like, so if I played stuff, I had stuff that was all over, from pop to rock to just all over the place, but it was never one consistent style because I was always doing something for somebody else in between.
Right.
That never kind of solidified into anything, so it just kept me going and then made me realize that I needed to get a job. And so I ended up.
Amen to that. Now, you know what? You brought up something, and I'm glad you did. Like, the music business, of course, is not like it used to be. It's not, what's the word am I trying to say? It's not as profitable as it used to be. In a lot of different ways, but right now I feel like it's teaching us, as far as men and women, boys and girls, to be more entrepreneurial about how you run your business. Now apparently, obviously you got the itch to do music. That's your God-given talent. You're going to do it. But I know it takes a lot to really just be able to focus and put out a product yourself, correct?
It actually, it does take a lot, and it actually takes patience. It takes confidence because people will knock you down, and things change all the time. So, you start off on one thing, and you got the ball rolling, and then all of a sudden you'll hit like a roadblock, and you'll just, either people don't like it, you're not feeling it anymore. If time takes too long, your mindset now changes where you can't go back to the music that you were doing before. Maybe you just got a break. You were just in a breakup, so now all your music is very like hurtful, and now all of a sudden you're in a great relationship. So when you do that stuff, you're like, I can't use it anymore. Because now if you use it, the person you're with going to think you're talking about them, and now they upset. So So a lot of different factors kind of change when you're working independently, whereas when you're working with a major label, you have somebody else kind of dictating what you're doing. It does make it a little easier because they're kind of spearheading it, but then it also takes some of the genuineness out of it because that's someone basically telling you what you're doing instead of you creating something with your heart that you really like creating your baby kind of thing. So there's positives and negatives to both sides. And that's what people have to be prepared for. Whatever the positives and negatives are, you have to be prepared for them, whether you decide to go independent or whether you want to search for a label. But most labels nowadays aren't even taking things unless you were successful independently, which is really weird.
Yeah, which, I mean, to me, I think, and I don't know when it happened. I mean, that's the thing. When somebody out there, not just in radio land, but literally in life, can tell me when did it all shift till, to get to that point where you had the passionate record labels that will, put money and time behind a project and development. And I had a conversation with Pebbles about the same thing as far as developing an artist. Like, we all know she helped develop TLC. A lot of what she told me as well, she told me that, it took about a year and a half before we got TLC right, before we sprang them into, the arena of music. Nowadays, everybody is you got tens and thousands and millions on top of millions of artists that say they can make it because they are the next TLC or they're the next Tony Braxton or whatever. But these people took time to develop these artists.
Right. And nowadays they don't take the time to develop. What they do is they just look to see if you're a carbon copy or whatever's out there right now so they can get their quick money. And then if you're not, they don't even want to hear it. They won't even take the time to hear your talent. And that's the sad part that I tell a lot of my students. Like, they come in and they're like, oh, well, I'm talented. And I said, the sad part is a record label's not going to take the time to hear your talent. As much as we like them to listen to your talent, they're not going to. They're going to look at your look and see if you look like the next Chris Brown because he's hot right now. If Usher's hot right now, they're going to look to see, do you look like Usher? Can you sound like Usher? If not, they're not even going to bother the fact that you have the vocal ability of a Karen Clark and you're a guy that's singing R&B. They're not going to care because you don't look like an Usher and you can't sing Usher songs if Usher's the next hot thing. Like, that's just how it is, and I think it started to shift once they started to create bands and create groups. That's when it started to shift because that's when it really became a business of creating a product. So when you got and not that there's anything wrong with the NSYNCs or the Eden's Crushes or things like that, and I'm pretty sure people don't even remember Eden's Crush, but that lets you know I was up with my music stuff. people think the Pussycat Dolls, and I forget her name, Nicole, they think she just sprung up out of nowhere, but they don't realize that she was on Eden's Crush when it was the Pop Star show, and she was one of Eden's Crush. Like, she was already in a group beforehand. But, when they started putting them together, that's when I think they said, we can make money on this and just put people in places like products.
That is true.
I want a group who has a blonde hair, a dark skin, an Asian-looking one, a black girl. We want the scare, like with the Spice Girls. That was the best creation ever. I need one that's into sports. I need one who's like a little kid. I need one and you became products and like dolls. And then at that moment, when they saw that the Spice Girls were successful, they did it again with NSYNC. They did it with the Backstreet Boys. They did it, and they just began creating groups and just creating images.
And then it leaked into the urban community with the with the whole making a band with Puff and
and it became the artistry became dolls. And that's what it is. You became strictly a doll. Like, I understand. Like, I'll kid you not. I went to an audition for a Making the Band once. And do you know, I sang in that room with a cold. Do you know what they told me? They dismissed me and said, and this is exactly what they said, because I went to an audition in New York. You can ask my father. After I sang, the people came to me and said, you know what? You have great tone. You have a great voice. You was like, your style is unremarkable, but we don't think that you blend with the other people that we have, so we're going to have to.
Wow.
And I was like, what? You mean to tell me you're going to commend me on this talent that I have, but then dismiss me because I won't blend with the other guys that you got because I didn't fit the pawn. I didn't fit the playing board. Wow. And that's another thing that's happening in the industry is that a lot of people are getting turned away because they don't fit whatever that A&R, that person who's in charge, is looking at when they're putting together their dollhouse. You don't fit in the dollhouse. And that's kind of what's happening. I even went to an audition of American Idol one year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, it was in the New Jersey, the Meadowlands Arena, whatever it is.
Right.
And my mother sat all the way in the top stands. I went down there and sang Freddie Jackson. My mother said she heard me all the way in the back. That's how clear I was singing, and there was no mic. The whole entire arena went silent. The lady looked at me and said, "You have great tone. I love your voice. It was a great piece, but you didn't stare at me while you were singing, so better luck next year."
Wait, are you serious? No,
I'm serious as a heart attack. She said, because I did not stare at her, better luck next year.
Wow.
Yes.
And you were, and you know what, Terrell, you're so right when it comes to people looking at talent nowadays from the outside in. Like you can have the best voice on the planet, male or female, but if they find any kind of flaws with your outer appearance, it's over. It's all over.
Yep. Yep. And then they wonder why these kids are walking around here thinking they got to be good looking all the time, and they always got to wear the flyest clothes. And then they're saying, oh, all this bullying is happening because kids are stealing each other's sneakers and shoes and jeans. But you've created this nonsense because you've made it a point to say that if you want to be somebody in this world, you have to look a certain way and you have to be a certain way because you're creating these carbon copies and these molds, and kids are falling into that.
Wow.
Kids are falling into that.
That's real. That's real.
And I mean, and like I said, I'm not saying this because I'm an angry musician or an angry artist.
Of course not.
But I'm saying this because I was an artist. I've seen it. I started in the industry when I was 10. I've seen it, so I got to come in the 90s and kind of see the music changing. I left, came back independent, left again, became a teacher to educate children that I watched go through all of this. And I'm sitting in my classroom telling them, why are you doing this? And their answers to me is, well, that's what Lil Wayne does on TV, or that's what I saw in this video. And I'm like, what?
Yep, that's real. That's real. And the thing about it, Terrell, do you feel like we can ever be able to have that feeling back like we used to have back in the days from the 90s before? Do you think that'll ever come back?
It is coming, and I can honestly say, and this is the good thing I can say, like when I started the Hi-5 venture, even though I can't finish it because they've actually gone on without me, and so now I'm just Terrell, a former member of the new Hi-5, I did get the chance to meet like the Force MDs. I ran into Full Force. You know, actually the reason why I'm on the show is because of Kevin, who actually is the street team for the Force MDs, and he actually said to Terrell, I need to get you on my man's show, and I was like, no problem.
Shout out to KG.
And I got to run into them and, you know, see them do shows, and went down to North Carolina where they put on an all-90s show where it was Force MDs and Full Force. And, you know, I got to go to a show. I got to go to Big Daddy Kane's birthday party and see Nice and Smooth perform and Special Ed and to see all of that. And I'm saying, and it was fun because my cousin was with me who's 18, and he's like, he didn't know who he was looking at. And I said it was so amazing that I knew all of these people. And I laughed with him because I said, you know what? I can't listen to hip-hop now. I'm a true R&B singer. Rap to me says nothing. And when I was there, I said, I was into hip-hop and rap when they rapped. And he was like, because he knows me as not listening to rap. And when he was, I said, if you knew, I said, the reason why you're rapping now is because of these people. And to see them do that, and now to be affiliated with the Force MDs and stuff like that, and to see like these little shows and venues that they're doing, it's only a matter of a time before it all just comes back. You know, I had the chance of being friends with Intro now, and they're getting ready to do some solo. They're getting ready to do a project. So it's slowly but surely creeping out, and it's not going to be in the mainstream because obviously the mainstream is full of these people who are looking to fill their dollhouses. You have to get rid of them first.
No doubt.
You have to either get rid of them or they have to realize that they need to put their dollhouse to the side and make a revision.
Yep.
You know, not saying there's anything wrong with the dollhouse because I got a marketing degree. I totally understand having people fit in certain spots. But at the same point, in order to get the music back, you're going to have to either push back those A&Rs and let the real music come through for a while so that way it can filter back into the system. So
I always feel like, you know, when it comes to mainstream, to me, I always feel like there should always be another public alternative to what we're forced to listen to or what we're forced to hear when it comes to stuff like that. Because right now we're being forced. We're being force-fed when we should be able to have an opportunity to have an alternative, period.
Well, see, the alternative was satellite radio.
No doubt.
It was supposed to be regular radio was what you were forced to, and then you go to satellite to kind of hear the independent artists, the this, the that.
Ah.
But then what you find out is now these regular radio stations and record companies have now purchased satellite radio stations.
Uh-huh.
So now our alternative is internet radio stations.
Yep.
Congratulations to you and many others that I know of, but that's now the new wave is the internet radio station. And then, because I'm a marketer, it's only a matter of time before these internet radio stations start blowing up, and then who's going to show up with the money? Record companies, radio stations. We want to buy your station and syndicate it. Like
you know what's real? Is one thing that they can tell me, they could throw whatever cash money my way, and I would decline that in a heartbeat because I will not change my format for nobody. I try to keep it as authentic as I possibly can, which is, you know, the reason why I do this. I do this for free if I have to. You know what I mean? I do it for the love of music, pure music, versus trying to make a buck. And I think a lot of people need to do that about their careers. And even in media, people need to, you know real journalism when it comes to real music versus anything else. So, you know, that's where I come from. Quote me on that, baby. That's how I get there.
But that's really what it is. Like you really kind of, and it goes back to what we're saying. You have to make your own way nowadays. And record companies will tell you, I want to sign you, but the first thing I say is, well, do you have a fan base before you even get to me? And logically speaking, if I had a fan base before I got to you, what do I really need you for?
Very true. Very true.
So, you know, so that's why I said people have to really think and the music business is not what it's cracked up to be anymore. It used to be, you know, you get into it and it was just this great place to be and you got the fans and got to do your music and concerts. Nowadays, I don't even really know if it's really worth it anymore.
Right.
And that's something that I've kind of been battling with, which kind of slows up whether I'm going to do this full steam or whether I'm going to stick to being the teacher and educator, is because I'm saying to myself, is it really worth it these days? You know, I'm listening to the new artists. I'm listening to the new artists that's coming out, and I'm listening to the new music. And you know, is it really worth it? Like, you know, I see some I just don't even know if it's really worth it. Like, I've seen friends that I've had that, let's say, were producers and writers. You know, when I was coming up, and you know, we worked together, that all of a sudden get a break. And even to this day, they don't even speak to me on Facebook. They're always too busy for me. And I'm saying to myself, when I was referencing your music, when you were trying to get it there,
right.
You know, I was your best friend. I didn't charge you for nothing. I didn't even fight over the fact that you put your name on the split sheet that said that you wrote it and you didn't. I didn't even fight over that. But now you get a little break, and it's like you don't even know me anymore. And I'm saying to myself, the world is shady enough. Do I really need to go from a shady world of people I don't really need to know into a smaller microcosm of a world that's just built on shade?
That's right.
I was like, I don't even want to walk through the world now and just deal with shady folks when I bump into them. Why would I put myself in other words, why would I even jump into a shark tank wearing a meat outfit? Do I really want to do that? Like, I know I can swim. I know I can swim, and I know I can probably outswim some of the sharks, but why would I jump in with a meat suit on thinking I was about to do something?
Wow.
Is it really worth it?
Amen to that. Amen to that. Sherelle Carter's our guest on Branded After Dark. And before we let you go, do you have social media networks from Twitter to Facebook? I got so many people hitting up emails and chat rooms like, okay, we need this guy has super game. We need to go hook up with this guy. So you got Facebook, Twitter, what you got?
Yes, I have Facebook. It is Terrell, Terrell, Carr, Carr. 2 words. Most people spell my name with double R's, but it's not. Again, Terrell, Carr. My Twitter is the same thing. It's just 1 word, but I don't usually go on Twitter that much, so I'm not a Twitter person. But you can definitely catch me on Facebook. If you want to shoot me an email, I would say do everything through Facebook because my email is kind of swamped with the teaching stuff and it might get lost, and I don't want people to think that I'm ignoring them after I just talked about this whole thing about being ignored and treating people like they're fat. I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring you. So,
there you go.
So if you send me a friend request, I'll add it. If I don't add it right away, it's probably because, you know, my Facebook acts up from time to time. Or just send me a message saying, you know, hey, I heard you on the radio station. You know, I just want to add you as a friend just to talk. So, like, and my Facebook page is really nice. People like to look at it. I have students on my page. I have my parents, family, music people. So I try and write things that I call them epiphanies, where I just have thoughts like how I'm speaking on the radio, and I'll just write those things up there about life, about just decisions, about, just stuff like that I like to do.
That's solid. That's solid. Now, I love your honesty, and one thing I got to tell you before I let you go is I love the fact that you're actually giving back to your students and telling them what's real in this world, as opposed to telling them that, hey, you know what, you can be this, and not giving them the alternative, because there's so many people that will gas you up, and then later on they'll find out from somebody else that it's a whole different world. And I appreciate the fact that not only are you honest, but you're still in this and you're still doing your teaching to be able to help other kids grow up, so to speak. So I appreciate that and applaud you for that.
Well, thank you very much. But, I just got to keep it real, because it's being a kid myself and getting into the industry, and then being able to come out of the industry and now teach kids and hear them tell me things like they don't need education because they're going to be a rapper. And I look at them and I'm saying to them, like, you don't need education, but you want to be a rapper. So then I remember one year when I first started teaching, I literally took out one of the contracts that I had and slapped it on their desk, and I said, read that to me and tell me what it is. And they looked at it and said, I don't know what this says. And I said, so again, you told me you don't need education? He's like, well, I'll just get an attorney. And I told him the first attorney that I had sold me out. That's why I had to learn how to read it, because he sold me out. Point blank. He sold me out. I needed to know what it said, because he could tell me it said anything, and he sold me out. The first contract I signed took me for 50% across the board. It even got as bad as they said if they even took 50% of my likeness. How do you take 50% of my likeness when half and half, one half belongs to my father and one half belongs to my mother, because it's them two that came together that created what I look like. So how do you own 50% of what I look like and you're just the company?
Word.
You did not lay down with my mother or my father to create what I look like, but yet you wanted 50% of my likeness. And I was like,
give him game, Terrell. Give him game, boy. I appreciate that game.
I'm just saying. They had things like anything that was sold with my voice or my likeness on it, they got money out of. So even if I was at my family reunion and I sang the Lord's Prayer, and they decided to sell it as a family memento where you can buy it for $5, the record company could swoop in and take that or take money from that. For what? I mean, this is the kind of things that are in these contracts that people need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
You think you signing something and people got your best interests at heart. The only people that got your best interests at heart are the ones that saw you when you were nothing. And even when you became something, they still look at you like you're that same nothing that they were hanging out with on the street. They could care less that you have everything else. And those are the ones that have your best interests at heart. That's right. And I got some friends like that now that even when I was signed to Whitney and traveling all over the place, they called me because they was mad that I didn't call them back. They didn't care that I was in California and the next day I was in Texas. They didn't care. Their whole point was, why didn't you call me back? Well, when you get back, we supposed to go to the movies. Don't tell me that you're too tired. They could care less what I was doing. It was like it didn't even exist.
That's
but
right.
Those are the ones that you need to keep in your corner.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate this game, man. Hey, anytime you want to come in and give us a music game, or according to Terrell, please do, because to me, you get a lot of respect, not just from me, but from so many listeners out here that appreciate what you're giving to them tonight. So, they got free game, baby. They got free game tonight on Branded After Dark.
Basically, no problem. And tell them, hit me up on Facebook. If they can't find me, they can call you. And, of course, you can always call Kevin, because Kevin calls me all the time, and we're always Facebooking. So if anybody can't find me and they know you and you know Kevin, you can send them to Kevin and they'll get you my Facebook. He'll get you my Facebook if you can't find it. Feel free to ask questions about, just education. I was a special ed teacher first. So even if you have your own kids and you're having trouble with school systems and stuff like that, call me. And, I'll talk everything from education to music to parenting, and I'm a foster parent. So I'll even talk diapers with you. So whatever you want to talk about, you just let me know. And if I don't know about it, I'll probably know somebody that do, and I'll get back to you.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate it. Listen, Terrell Carter, thanks a lot, man. Many blessings to you, bro.
All right, same to you. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. That is Terrell Carter right here on Branded.
Thank you for listening to the #1 radio station for the people.
Nexxlegacy Radio.